This is the second case study, which is control. Now, in control, we don't deal really with the money, with like expenses or revenue, but we are allocating cost to specific cost centers. So we'll start by creating a cost center. We'll create a statistical key figure, and statistical key figures are used in order to allocate cost to the different cost centers. We'll create a secondary cost element, and that's what's used again to allocate cost to the different cost centers. And we'll create activities and so on. So we'll go through this process. Now remember that controlling is actually a managerial kind of activity. It has to do with determining whether a particular cost center is using more resources than generating output. So it is a type of control that managers tend to exercise in order to make sure that particular cost centers or units within an organization are not using more resources than they are generating output. So the first exercise asks you to create a cost center. Remember, a cost center is just a unit within an organization that is responsible for a specific function, like marketing, for example, or maybe responsible for a function in a geographic area. So if in Miami you have an office that it might be dealing with all kind of functionality or just sales, then that would be considered a cost center. Now that cost center will be allocated certain costs like electricity, rent, labor, and so on, wages, and so on. So our first exercise is creating a cost center. So we'll start by clicking on controlling, cost center accounting, master data. Now we are creating a cost center, and we said that there are certain types of data that continue to reside within the system, and these are called master data. They are permanent data that continue to exist in the system from one cycle to the next. So we're creating a cost center, individual processing, and create. Now the controlling area is North America. The cost center is CC-CA, and that stands for canteen, and then your number. And it is valid from beginning of this year. Up until 9999, which is it will continue to exist until we actually close that cost center. So the name is canteen. And you should be the person responsible. And the cost center category is H, which is service cost center. So it provides services to the whole organization. So if you have, for example, a cafeteria uh, on site, the cost for that cafeteria, for running the cafeteria, should be allocated to different cost centers. Of course, the canteen itself is a cost center. It incurs cost, like as we said, electricity, the utensils, and all of these things that you need in order to have a cafeteria. But then the actual cost, the total cost, needs to be allocated to the different units also. And then we need to assign it to internal services and 1200. The business area is bikes. There's only one. And cost is incurred in US dollars. So you're running it North America, then US dollars would be the currency. So everything is fine. We'll need to save it. So, and you get the message that it has been created. You need to create a new one. So you'll go back. This time the cost center is for maintenance, so you will change the CA to MA. And again, it's valid from and the name would be maintenance. Remember, the 3 zeros is your number, and again you will write your name as the person responsible. This time the cost center category is F, and F is production. And the hierarchy area is N4200, which is production. The business area is still bikes, and the currency is US dollars. And the second cost center is created. Now we'll go and create statistical key figures. Remember, a statistical key figure is a way for you to allocate a particular cost to different cost centers. So as we said, a cafeteria incur a lot of costs, but it is there to service all of the different departments. So I need to allocate the cost of the cafeteria to all to the different departments. So now we'll go back up and we'll go under statistical key figures this time. Individual processing and create. And we are creating a statistical key figure that is based on employees, number of employees. So one way of dividing cost is, for example, if I want to divide the cost of running a cafeteria or managing a cafeteria on site, it will be based the way that I will allocate it will be based on the number of employees in each department. So those departments that have larger number of employees will incur a higher cost or will be allocated a higher cost of having a cafeteria on site than smaller departments who would have less number of employees. So the statistical key figure is EMP and your number, and we'll hit enter. And the name of that statistical key figure is number of employees. So it is, the unit of measurement is persons, number of persons, and it is a fixed value. So now it is saved. So remember, the reason that we created a statistical key figure is to use that key figure in order to allocate cost to the different cost centers within the organization. Now we will be creating secondary cost element. Now the secondary cost element is used mainly for control. There is a difference between the primary cost element and a secondary cost element. A primary cost element has direct connection to a general ledger account. So when we're talking about material that we buy, material is a primary cost element because there is a general ledger account material that is connected to it. Same thing for example, travel or personnel cost like wages or energy cost. All of these have corresponding general ledger accounts. So in the general ledger, you will have an account called wages, you will have an account called energy, you will have one for material, and these are the primary cost element. And we use that in financial accounting. In control, here it's purely managerial. You are allocating certain costs like overhead cost, for example, to specific cost centers using now secondary cost element. The secondary cost element do not have a corresponding GL account. The reason that you are, the only reason for creating a secondary cost element is to allocate a certain cost among different cost centers. So now we will be creating the secondary cost element. So remember, a secondary cost element does not have a corresponding general ledger account. So the element that we are creating is PLA and your number. And again, it's valid from the beginning of this year until 999. The name is Plan Assessment. and we are going to assign it to cost element category 42, which is assessment. So the cost element has been created. We'll create another cost element for maintenance. So these two secondary elements are created in order to allocate the cost of the cafeteria and the cost of maintenance to the different departments or the different units within your organization. Okay, now we're done with that step. We'll now create activity types. Okay, now the activity types are activities that a cost center perform. And again, because performing an activity will result in incurring certain costs, then we need to identify what particular activity resulted in that cost for that cost center. So as the name implies, that activity type is a classification for the activity that the cost center perform on regular basis or during their daily business processes. So the activity type is maintenance. And the name is maintenance hours. is maintenance is measured in terms of hours. Then you can see here the different units that you can measure activities. So it can be days, it can be dozens, number. And that activity is valid for all cost center categories. So we'll put an asterisk to say, well, it is applicable to everything. And there is a manual entry, manual allocation. Okay, we'll repeat and create another activity. This time it is for the assembly. And it is assembly hours. Again, it is hours. Now we will be creating a group, a cost center group. Now you can group a number of cost centers because they all are allocated a specific cost. So let's say, for example, you want to allocate the cost of maintenance to only three departments or three units within the organization. You would create a group that will have these three units only. And then you will say, okay, divide the cost based on particular statistical key figure, like as we said, number of employees, or it could be like square footage. If you are trying to allocate rent, you may be using square footage rather than number of employees, and so on. So we'll create a group. And you will name that group canteen cost receivers. The first one is CC CA000 CC MA000 and CCAS000. You see, I've done I had to remove it, and this will just like remove it. If you select it first, select if you have made an error like I did, you can select it and then remove it. again to insert, then you will click on cost center so that you would insert another cost center. And it is, I think I left out the dash, that's why it couldn't recognize the assembly. And it says no valid master record. I'm gonna pause and look that back up and see if I have the cost centers or not, and then come back. It seems I forgot to create assembly or save. I did not save it. I'm not sure what was the problem, but I recreated it again because I couldn't find it. And now we are going to make sure that the cost center group has all three cost centers. So because I've already created the group, I'm going to go under change, and this is the group that I created, and hit enter, and it says that CCAS 000 is not a valid master record. So I'm going to select it and I will remove it, and then I will add a new cost center, and this time is CC dash AS 000. I'll hit enter, and now it says assembly, and I will save. So the group 000 have three cost centers, and these will be allocated the canteen cost. So the group name is canteen cost receivers. So some of the cost is actually allocated to canteen, some will be allocated to maintenance, and some to assembly. Or it could be that canteen will originally be assigned all of the cost, meaning the primary cost elements, and then you will take the primary cost elements and use secondary cost elements to allocate part of the cost to maintenance and assembly. Now we will do the planning for the number of employees. So we'll go out. So go under planning and statistical key figures and change. And the layout that comes is 1-301. That's the standard layout. And you are to choose version 0. Which is plan actual version, and periods 1 to 12. Of this year. And the cost center is CCAS 000. And you make sure you will remove the group. And the statistical key figure, remember we created one, and that's the number of employees. And you plan to have 15 employees, and save. Now for maintenance we have 5, and for the canteen cost center we have 5. So again, with everything the same, we will just change from AS to MA. plan for the employees is 5. And for continuous 5 also. And now we'll go out. And now we'll plan the activity output for maintenance and assembly. Okay, we'll go under activity output prices and change. And now we'll allocate number of hours for each cost center. So we'll start with MA. And the activity type is M. And we'll enter 1800 hours as the plan activity. We'll do that for assembly. Now we will plan the primary cost for each of these cost centers. Each of these cost centers incur cost that's actually paid in dollars. It's not now control, it's actually under financials. So the exercise asks you to create or to plan primary cost of $60,000 for canteen and 90,000 for purchase services. So it seems like the cafeteria requires certain services that's for the whole year amount or total to 90,000. And then maintenance only have a cost for salaries, and assembly has also a cost for wages. So we'll create or we'll do the planning for these under cost and activity input. So we'll start with canteen. You want to find out labor, and labor is 7, I think 5 zeros. And your cost of labor for the canteen is 60,000. Now we also have, for the same cost center, the canteen cost center, we have a $90,000 for purchased services. So this time it is 74130. And if you want to make sure, you can actually search it and you can see 74130 is miscellaneous expenses. Now we'll enter the cost for the maintenance and assembly. For maintenance, we have just labor for 60,000. And for assembly, we have labor for 150, it's wages of 150,000. Because it's a wage, remember, labor or that's paid hourly is variable. So the more hours they work, the more their wages are higher. So it is a variable cost rather than the salaries, which are fixed cost. Next, we'll plan the internal activity input. So we'll go out and So here you are a cost center that's maintenance incur a specific cost that is now being allocated, or part of it is being allocated to assembly. So the sender cost element is the original, or the cost center that originally incurred the cost. And that type of, or the cost is associated with maintenance. And they have 600 hours. Now we will review the planning that we did. So we'll go out and go under information systems this time. So we know that under canteen we have 60,000 that are labor and 90,000 that are miscellaneous expenses, which total 250,000. We'll go back and look at maintenance. And you see that you have a 60,000 primary cost. And now for assembly. And you have 150,000 that are labor. Excuse me. Now we will determine allocations. We'll plan allocations. That means how we will allocate cost from a particular cost center to receivers, several other cost centers. As we said, canteen, the cafeteria, the cost of running a cafeteria will be shared among three different cost centers. Maintenance will also allocate some of its costs to assembly. So we need to do the allocations to determine how much cost to allocate to each cost center. Okay, we'll go under extras and cycle and create. And the cycle number is C000 or your number, valid from beginning of the year. So go ahead and type in cycle for canteen 000 and uncheck iterative and click on attach segment. And the segment name is seg and your number. So the cost center that is allocating cost is the canteen. And it is allocating it to a whole group. And that's group 000 that we created a while ago. And I actually have to put it under the receiver. So we have already planned how many employees will be in each of the departments, and we are going to use that the number of employees that we have entered as a way for allocating costs. So we'll use planned statistical key figures. Now we are specifying the statistical figure that we created, which is number of employees, EMP 000, will be used as a way for allocating cost. And now we will save, and we've saved and go out. Okay, now we will try and run the cycle. So we'll put cycle C 000 and click enter. Then uncheck test run and execute.